Jenna Darling here.
Steve Morris here. All right, we are missing Mr. Jones, who may or may not make it. He had some flooding issues. All right, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's normally over there. All right, any adjustments to the agenda?
Yes, I'd like to add in just a brief discussion about policy EHR. We can put that under the B, because I'm also going to ask to remove policy KCD.
Should we remove that and replace it with?
EH-R, it's just a discussion, it's not anything that you have to see. And then I would like to see if we can just add in under, for B, I'd like to just talk a little bit about the audit. The auditors are requesting to do the audit.
Oh, for C?
You can go into B because I'm taking out budget adjustments.
We don't have budget adjustments.
We don't have budget adjustments today?
No.
No, it's not. Well, sure, it's okay. Mine has it. All right, so yeah, so we'll go C. Yeah. Audit. And then I'd like to add in just a brief reporting update.
All right, so we've got roll call vote to approve those, starting with Mr. Spalding.
Those fans are making the microphones go completely haywire. So you can keep the AC on, but if those fans are just making it sound like there's a helicopter in the room. Can you turn them off? Because the mics were working fine before they were turned on. Take a second.
That's good?
Okay. Jenna Darling, yes.
Steve Morris, yes. All right, so we updated the agenda. All right, last call, public comment. Did anyone sign up? All right, approval of the minutes.
I would move the public minutes of June 16th, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes,
Mr.
page 3. Well, I've got it, page 3, one item, and I see what I've got. But without sufficient explanation, I won't go forward with it. The next one is on the top of page 3. It starts, first line is bus rent, then information, the number 2, members issue, number 3, and then Chairman Magoon. So if there's been a promotion while I was out,
No, thank you.
or quite possibly I could be incorrect.
Oh, I see.
Thank you.
And gave his opinion, so I'm a bit worried now about,
So that should be Chairman Morris.
yes. That's it?
All right. So, recommend changing it, Magoon to Morris on page 3, line 6.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, passes 4-0. All right, next we'll move to the public minutes from June 22nd.
Would move the minutes of June 22nd, 2023. This was the meeting between, the joint meeting between the school board and the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Any discussion, changes, corrections? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained,
Abstain.
3 ayes and 1 abstention, Mr. Beard. All right, next we have the public minutes for June 29th. Do I have a motion?
Move to accept the minutes of June 29th.
Thank you, Tim. Have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion on these minutes?
Yes, on page 1. About 4.5 inches up on the left-hand side. Interim Superintendent Magoon said Croydon was at the end of their 3-year contract. Chairman Magoon said, we're having fun tonight.
All right.
Someone is.
We need to remove interim. No, was it me, or did I say that, or
Because
you?
you said they caught.
So it says Chairman
Oh, yeah.
Magoon said interim superintendent Magoon. So it should be Chairman Morris said Superintendent Magoon. So there's 2 changes.
No, you're reading it, that's all in the same line, but I'm just making sure that I said that, because I didn't catch.
Oh, okay.
I think I did say that. Because it said the Newport School Board could look at the contract and the way the tuition is calculated.
Yeah, this sounds like something I would say.
Okay.
Proficiencies, testing,
Yeah.
value, not giving away services for free, that
That
sounds
would be,
like.
that was definitely you.
All right, so the motion, we're gonna remove interim, and then on the superintendent part, and then we're gonna change Chairman Magoon to Chairman Morris. Good catch, Mr. Small. Start calling you Eagle Eye. Any other corrections?
That's it?
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained,
Abstain.
passes 3 with 1 abstention. Mr. Darth. All right, next we'll move to approval of non-public minutes. First is June 16th.
Can we, before we do that,
Yes, sir.
can we make a change to the agenda line itself? The line 5. Approval of minutes, public, June 16th, 2023, June 22, 2023, AM, and June 29, 2023, PM, should be at the end.
Why would you on the end of that? Because we changed.
Did we have a meeting on? We already approved the minutes for June 22nd.
PM.
We did that last week.
Okay, that's what we did then.
So,
Okay.
I see what you're saying, though.
Yep.
Because we had 2 meetings that day. You guys did more.
Yeah,
So that-
we came back for that.
Yeah,
Got 2 out of 3.
yeah.
Too many meetings this month.
all right, approval of non-public minutes, June 16th. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? These are the ones that I had to fix, or we approved those last week. Just making sure. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained?
Does that require a roll call?
I don't think.
Okay.
All right, Stephen is not here, so we'll move on to our next topic, end-of-year academic report.
So I will turn this over to our friend Kane to give you the presentation that we have up here on the board.
All right. So, gonna start us right off by jumping into Richards, and we really focused on two different assessments, the STAR and the SAS. STAR is our local district level assessment. At Richards, we have 3 different assessments that kiddos take. The first one being early literacy, and this is taken by kindergarten, grade 1, and some grade 2 students, and this really focuses on phonics, phonemic awareness, and a little bit of foundational math in the kindergarten assessment. 162 of our students took that at Richards, and 33% of the students were on or above grade level. 197 students took the STAR reading assessment, and this is a little bit different. This focuses on vocabulary and comprehension skills. So this is taken by second grade, some second grade students who are ready for it, third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade students. And it determines if they're ready for it on how they do on the early literacy assessment. So if they pass that with flying colors and they show that they're ready for reading, then they take the reading assessment as well, or instead of. 39% of our students were on or above grade level on the reading assessment. 242 students completed the STAR math assessment, and this was taken in grades 1 through 5. As I mentioned before, kindergarten has some math questions within their early literacy assessment just to see if they're ready to move on to the next level. And 36% of our students were on or above grade level on the math assessment.
Can we talk about those numbers?
Mm-hmm.
Steve? This shows that we have work to be done.
Mm-hmm.
If I say significant work, we're looking at 67% below grade level.
Mm-hmm.
And 61%. So I guess I would say absorbing that. What are our plans to change that number in the future?
We have
Slides
that on
away.
slide.
There's more slides, and I addressed that.
Yeah, it's addressed in a couple slides up.
Okay. Is there any way that we're working on it? If it's coming, then I guess, the question will be ahead of the answer, which is there's got to be something significant in order for us to change that number. And so I'm hoping it's there, because not being there is both of these numbers, the 33% and the 39%, is pardon me, unacceptable. All right, I'm ready to learn the solution.
Thinking about the growth, because we also get a report that talks about how our students are making progress instead of just where they're at grade level wise. 39% of our students had high growth from the fall to the spring, and then 27% of our students had typical growth. So if you're thinking about how our students are growing, 66% of our students have made progress, so they're not just staying stagnant or falling behind. They are making good progress, which is encouraging, given that we have put some stuff, in place this year. Looking at New Hampshire SAS, This assessment is for grades 3, 4, and 5, and they complete an assessment for ELA and math. Students in grade 5 also participate in a science assessment for SAS, and this is our state testing. This is required by the state. 22% of our students were on or above grade level in ELA, which is reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Last year, 21% of our students were above or on grade level in ELA. 11% of our students were on or above grade level in math, and that stayed the same as last year. And 18% of our students were on or above grade level in science, and again, that's just our 5th graders, but that did improve from 10% last year. Thinking about next steps, this year we implemented Haggerty and phonemic awareness instruction and foundations for phonics. Whenever you implement something fully, and it takes people time to get used to that program, it takes students time to get used to that program, teachers as well. And they'd never had training on these before. Well, they did, but years ago. And so we provided that again beginning of the year. We're looking to continue that for next year, for the 23-24 school year, and so we'll continue with that. The kids will start off with that right away, and we'll be able to hit the ground running with those 2 programs. And in order for them to have any reading skills, they need to start with those foundational skills, and so those 2 programs have seen good success this year. We also implemented Amplify CKLA for grades 3 to 5 to focus on vocabulary and comprehension instruction. There was also a writing component as part of this. We're looking at the possibility of bringing this to 2nd grade. I've talked with that team. We're just waiting to get some samples to see if it's something that they're willing to, if it's appropriate for our students. And that really focuses on background knowledge, vocabulary, comprehension, which is something that our students really need greatly. We didn't start this because of materials problems. They had a hard time getting them to us, the company did. Really didn't start until around November, so we haven't had a full year with that yet. So this will be our first full year of implementation. Excited that we're starting with Open Up Math for grades K to 5. Recently, in the past several years, there's been different math programs, and for the math programs that they did have, they didn't necessarily have all of the materials they needed to support that math program. So we've ordered, it's been received, people have gone through it, and we're going to be starting a comprehensive training program that involves an in-person kickoff, but also support along the way as they get started and get going with this program. So that's in the process of being set up also. Been working with Rob Clark, the principal, and he's been working with his leadership team to come up with a consistent master schedule in order to address the support for Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction. This was based on having difficulty sharing resources and making sure that our students who are in Tier 2 and Tier 3 have support that they need. So that way, for example, not everybody's teaching reading at the same time. So that way we can share resources during those reading blocks to make sure that the kids have the opportunity to get that support. Vertical learning teams are going to continue. We've added more this year, so we have 3 teams that are going to be K1-2 and 3 teams that are going to be 3-4-5. So that way we have more opportunity to fill gaps and to get students the instruction that they need, and hopefully that they can make more progress. Also, we've been talking with Mr. Clark to come up with some consistent PLC time. That way that they can talk with their team, look at data more often, and use that to drive instruction consistently along the year, not just once or twice.
What's a PLC?
Professional learning community. It's really data-driven dialogue, and you look at it to see how you can improve student learning. And I think one of the biggest things we can do for our students this year is, we've talked about it before, that Jen came and talked at the school board meeting about effective school solutions and how that is going to be a huge social, emotional, mental health support for our students. And there's tons of research out there that states that if kids don't have that portion of their needs taken care of, then the academics won't come. So that will be a huge support also.
I can ask you, or I can ask from the audience, how much PLC time is our staff getting?
Right now, it's kind of wonky right now, or this past year it was. So every other week, they had a week during their lunch block that they had a half an hour. So they had a half-hour lunch, but then they had a half hour to meet with their team, and that was every other week. So a half an hour is not really good amount of time to dive into data and to have those conversations. So we're looking at working it into the schedule, and so they can meet for an hour at a time. Not necessarily during the school day, but we're working on how to make that work, and to stay within the contract.
Right. Yeah, I don't think a half an hour is sufficient, and
It's just choppy. Like, you can
Right.
have that conversation over the week because it's a half an hour every day, but you just can't. And I know we've talked a lot about that.
Especially if you're factoring in getting kids in snowsuits and walking to recess and then
got it.
it's 15 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And also just the idea of having the goal of that professional learning community just be targeted for a certain amount of time. I don't think it would be a surprise to anybody to say that there's a lot to address here, but if we try to bite it all off in one go, we're not going to get anywhere. So whether it's focusing on math because it was the lowest, for SAS or whatever, does the Open Up Math have its own assessment?
They have assessments a lot, yes.
Are we doing them?
At the end of every unit.
No, I meant like a diagnostic type assessment.
I don't believe so. That would be our star for our diagnostic.
Okay.
So, it's one of the fears, or one of the things that is tough because, like, as a board, we're like, those numbers aren't good. I'm kind of like looking ahead and like, the next numbers are worse. But if we are like, oh, okay, these are horrible, and we're just going to throw away everything we're doing right now because that's not working. We can't keep doing that, though, because if we do that every year, you never have consistency, and these kids are never going to get it. And I know there's been a lot of things where, like, whatever grade it was, like, they're all teaching a different math. Okay, well, that's not beneficial. So that change was made. That's a good change. I just don't know, have the things we did last year, were they new to last year, or are we still doing a lot of the same things?
They were semi-new. I know some people had foundations materials, but not necessarily everything they needed, nor did they have the training. So we kind of re-implemented it fully, I guess. Some people were using parts of it, and some people had no material whatsoever. So we made sure everybody had the materials in order to be successful, in order to do that. So that will continue, so we're not throwing that away. And those are both really accredited programs. You get a lot of bang for your buck there. So those
Also turnover. We think about the turnover as well. We train the teachers, and then the next year comes and they're new teachers.
It seems like the plan of attack this year and moving forward is curriculum driven and making sure that everybody has the materials. It also sounds like we're throwing's a bad word, but I'm going to use it. We're throwing a lot of materials at our teachers that they have to get through, and I just want to make sure that they have the support and the training that they need so that these brand new lovely materials just don't sit there or unused, and that we're continuously soliciting feedback of how they're implemented in the classroom and how effective they are. You know, I understand where Tim's coming from with having a cohesive math program, but I also know that first graders, kindergartners are very different than 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So, but I guess that would be my concern with being so curriculum heavy. And I don't know what the other solution is. I struggle with this whole conversation because assessment for me is a necessary evil. I've been carrying around this assessment thing in my bag for months. I understand that it needs to be done. But to say that this is the only reflection of our students and our staff is what I struggle with the most. So what are we taking away from this of our students, our staff, and how we want to move? Sorry, I'm slamming the table. It's probably making the mic go off. What are we taking away from this moving forward? I struggle with assessment. I know it needs to be done. I think it needs to be monitored and tracked. I think it's valuable. But for me, it's never everything.
At Richards, we didn't necessarily focus right on that. We had a system where we looked at STAR, Fontes and Pinnell, Haggerty. Like we had, especially for the younger kindergarten and first grade, there were like 6 different data points that we looked at to come up with an overall score for that student.
So are you saying like each student receives one score based on all the different assessments?
Yes, and I mean I could show that another time.
Yeah.
Because I don't have it as part of this, but like at Richards specifically, we have that just to talk about kids without having it just be one data point, because that is one score. STAR is one score.
Right.
On one day on how they did, and we know that there's so much more that goes into kiddos assessing than just that one day. So when we're talking about kids in our data meetings, we do talk about more than just that one. Not taking away the importance of looking at the data that we're looking at right now, but to have the conversation of the whole child.
Just to back up what Lynn says, a couple things. STAR is one-on-one on the computer. So kindergartners are doing it for the first time on a computer, and first graders, we do it 3 times. But we're not allowed to sit with them unless they have it in their plan. We're not allowed to make sure that they hear the directions, and it will say like pat, pot, pan, which one ends in a different sound, and if they don't listen to the whole, they just click. But one of the things that Bryn did was she had color-coded cards, and then when we first met in November, we had a lot of red. It was really scary. And then when we met at the end of the year, we had a lot of green. That doesn't show up on the STAR test.
Right.
That's the growth that we saw.
But that's what I worry about when we get presentations like that, is I know that green happens. But unfortunately, it doesn't always make it to this level.
So, I mean, yeah, because that's like the growth thing was a huge thing, because 39% of the students had high growth, and then 27 had typical growth. So that means that percentage of them grew some way more than others, and then some typical, so the percentage that didn't grow was significantly less than what we're seeing like here. So if I said 39% of the students that were on or above grade level for the STAR testing for reading 2, 3, 4, and 5th grade, that wouldn't mean that technically 61% of those kids shouldn't move to the next grade technically. It just means this test, that's where those numbers are. So obviously you do assignments in school and different things. Your kids are passing more than 39% of your kids are passing these assignments that the teachers are giving the students, correct?
And like if you look at a Fontes and Pinnell assessment, that is reading comprehension. So if you look at like where the kids are at with that, they may be above grade level there, but STAR testing is just, it's a different testing environment. So part of it is getting our kids acclimated to what that looks like, how to do that, because even sometimes the questions they ask. I know in my old district, when I was still in the classroom, my kids would come up to me and be like, what is this asking me? I go, oh, we did it this way in class. They're like, oh, I know how to do that. And they did it. So it's just, it's getting to know all of that, and that's part of life. You're gonna learn something one way, and you have to kind of apply it another way. And applying a skill is a depth of knowledge 4. That's the highest skill that you can do. So it's getting.
It's teaching how to think, not what to think. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
I got a couple of things here real quick. So when you say this is on like the next steps, comprehensive training program is in the process of being set up, like is it going to be set up before the school year?
Yeah, I'm just in process. I'm waiting for a date to get back to me. That's
So,
all.
like, it will, to me as a board member, I'd feel better if it said will be set up before the next school year.
We'll be set up before the next school year.
And then,
You can quote me on that.
well, I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No, I
I'm
know.
just saying,
I know.
I could sit here and brief that we're setting it up for the next year.
Yeah, no,
You
it
know what I
will,
mean?
it
Oh,
will be
we're
in
still
place before they, yes.
Which I figured it was, I just want to clarify that. And then, I don't know, I had something else, it'll come back to me then. I have like one other thing, but it'll come
Okay.
back as you go. Did you have something else?
Yeah, I guess the other thing I would say is these tests, now I personally don't have experience with STAR, but I have a little bit of experience with other testing, and if STAR is anything like with what I have experience with, there's nothing more frustrating than having a student sit in front of you on a computer that you cannot help. Let's say they're a 6 or 7-year-old first grader, and they say, Mrs. Darling, I don't know what a fraction is, and there's nothing I can do. And they just get frustrated, and then the clicking starts happening.
And then they're done.
And then they've checked out. They're not. So-
I've said it even when I was on that side, that
Yeah.
teaching these kids, I know their proficiencies are better than they're reflecting. And so I don't want to, so I guess the next, like, if I'm listening to you, because you've said it 4 or 5 times tonight in different variations. No, is that the testings are not an accurate assessment of our children's academic progress. And if that's the case, then what is a good measurement of academic process of progress, and how do we report that out so that it's fair, it's not legal, but it's an accurate assessment and not like some popped up number like, oh, we're at 90% proficiency.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And so I guess that's, to me, because I'm all, like, personally, like, if we can set up some system and there's input, and it's like, we don't care about any of these state tests, they're garbage, and we don't need any state money because we're going to throw out your, I'm sure there's probably money.
Okay, I would not go that far.
But you kind of are, because you're saying that.
These are a necessary evil. I want these numbers to go up.
Okay.
But do I want our school's performance or reputation or the reputation of our students or teachers to solely be based on that? Absolutely not. That I'd fight all day long.
I don't think that it is, other than the fact that it is when the rest of the country logs on, and they don't have to log on to a real estate website. They can log on to the Department of Education,
Yes.
look at proficiencies, and then there's Newport down there at the
Yes.
bottom. And
Yes.
so it is a necessary evil, but that's what my point is and I'm not trying to argue with you. What I'm saying though is, like, it starts at the smallest level. So if there's a teacher out there that's like, you know what, we did this in, Alaska, the 2 years I taught there or whatever, and it really worked well, and for some reason it hasn't made it to the mainland, let's look at this and implement this, and then take it to the superintendent, take it to the teachers, and get the town to buy in on an accurate assessment. Because otherwise, what we do is, anyway, I can go on and on about this, but what I'm saying is that I agree with you because I've seen it. I know that these kids and the teachers, we're all performing in this district better than the tests show. However, everybody has access to that test data, and it doesn't really we can sit in here and be like, you're doing a great job, and you know that I'm telling the truth because I've worked with you and I know what you're doing. But when Steve Morris comes in, that just bought a house down the road and stands in here, is like, what are you guys doing to improve this district? Because your testing is horrible. Why do I send my kids and my tax dollars here? Why don't I go somewhere else? And that's where we got to be able to say, you know what, they do stink. However, and these are some good data points, because it looks like we've made progress since November when some of this stuff was implemented. And I have a feeling that as we figure things out, the testing will improve a little bit. But if you look across the state, the entire state for New Hampshire is like this over the last 25 years. So it's not just Newport, by the way, it's everywhere. And that, you know, maybe in some private school where they're, you know, tutoring till 9 o'clock at night and, you know, whatever. But I say all that to say that, yes, we need to improve these numbers, but also if there is something out there that, because, you know, we can't stop doing these because of all the grants and everything tied into it, but if we can say, hey, look, here is the Newport assessment, and we are all happy with that assessment as a board or as a town, and the teachers come together and say, we give them a test of some kind where they can interact and communicate and solve a problem, because that's really, at the end of the day, what all of us have to do to graduate. You got to be able to solve problems. You got to be able to think about something. You got to be able to think about, like Rick was saying, you got to be able to, oh, I do know how to do that. You know, you got to be able to think about it. Yes, ma'am.
I think one of the most important things that we need to look at, right, is that if the numbers, right, over 60% of our children showed growth, right? And I think that's what's important. That's what one of the things we should be focusing on, right? Is that that's huge. 67, over half of our kids are showing growth, and I think that's what we need to look at. That's what's not being reported out, right? That we may not be there yet, but we're getting there. Over 60-something% of our kids, 67 or something like that, are already starting to do that. And so there are really great things happening in our buildings. And I like to focus on that piece, right? That, yes, if you click, you know, and we have to put it on our website that shows, you know, the state says you need to put your report card on there that we give. But that doesn't look at what our kids are really capable of doing. A lot of people don't do well on tests. They just don't do well. And so they're required to take this test, and now everything is computer. It's not even paper and pencil anymore, it's computer-based. And so once you hit one point of frustration, then the rest of the test is gone, because now you're done. You're just, yep. And I know the teachers can vouch for that, because that's what happens. You get frustrated and you shut down, and then you walk out of a room sometimes, right? And so... And so,
Speaking of which.
right, but I also like to focus on is how well our kids are starting to do. We are seeing growth.
Mr. Spalding.
I don't want to be super negative, but I can't accept these numbers. 60% went from here to here when everybody's supposed to have been here is unacceptable. If we say the tests are wrong, it's a statewide test, and it is a world test when they get out of school. If I was a manufacturer and I had 36% of my product saleable, I'd be out of business in no time flat. So this isn't a business. I understand that. This is people. But we can't, as a board and as the administration, we can't allow these numbers to stay as they are. They must change. And with all of what education has been doing and all of the distractions between sexual this and sexual that and colors and etc., and all of the classroom problems, and we can't overcome it, we will fail. As a nation, we will fail. Now, there was an American teacher who took a job in China, jumped on a plane. She was on, it's on one of the podcasts from WCNL. And as she was in the plane going over, she thought maybe she made the biggest mistake in her life. Turned out it wasn't. And she came back here on the radio and talked about how China did it. So for all intents and purposes, I guess they have figured it out. And we are not figuring it out. When I say we, all of the turbulence that we've seen in education recently isn't about education. And so we have to change it, period. There's one number on here that I would accept as a board member. So, do I want us to go to Everest? No. But it'd be real nice if we could get to the top of Mount Sunapee. So what do we do as a board is a question that is before us tonight, because we've seen these numbers before, and to just take them, fold them up, put them in a folder and go away is, to me, unacceptable. Something has to change.
Well, if you're asking a question.
Well, that's it. Something has to change.
Well, we've gotten an entire new team up here in the last 12 months. Some of this stuff, as I mentioned, wasn't implemented until November. So was it a year and a half, 2 years ago now, y'all started the vertical learning teams? I mean, is that, I'll just ask you as a teacher, is that showing, is it helping? Is it doing what we were told it would do?
Yeah, it's a learning curve. There are positives about it, and there are things that we need to work on. One of the things that kindergarten and first have talked about is more of a parallel first, because they're little, so changing grades. But the question goes deeper. My question would be, what is the board prepared to do to back up teachers in the schools? My cousin is in Texas, which is a high-stakes testing state, and her daughter, first grade, is not even at grade level, and my cousin was told, you will hire a private tutor, and she will be reading at grade level by second quarter, or she's going to be retained. Can you imagine us telling Newport parents that?
Well, I can imagine that, 'cause I'm from Texas. So that's how I expect things to be. That's why whenever I talk at the end of most of these, I look at wherever I think the camera is and tell parents it's their responsibility. We're not here to raise and teach their kids. So I agree with you though, but that doesn't fly up here in the Northeast. It's not just Newport. I think it's a cultural thing. It's a Southern culture probably, and they probably do things way differently in California and out west. And that to me is, and that's why I always say it's the parents' responsibility. Like, yes, we're going to do all these things as a board, and we're working and we're getting all this good material in to provide a pathway that we think, based on the briefings that we've gotten over the last 2 years, sounds good. It sounds like you have a plan. That's why I was asking about this, because like the plan has to have a set date so that we know it's executed. We have a plan, but then it also takes the other 9 hours out of school that the student is awake, getting positive reinforcement from parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and guardians, is reinforcing it and being and understanding that homework is important. And we don't hand out homework like we did 10 years ago, much less 30 years ago. And for parents not to see the value of education, that ends up affecting all of us here in the school system. And so, and I'll say it again to any parents that are watching, that it's incumbent upon you to put the importance of education onto your child. We can do it, and we do it day in and day out, and we try across the school, but really, they're getting their influence at home. And that's a big part of it. And so I don't necessarily think you were looking for this long diatribe, but since you brought up Texas, and that's where I'm from originally, but that's how I was raised. Like my parents, regardless of whatever the principal was going to do or say to me or the teacher, I was more worried about what my parents were going to say and think about me. Because if my parents were disappointed in me, that's worse than a teacher being disappointed in me, and then my own disappointment's worse than anyone being disappointed in me. And so, that's me personally. I'm not looking to, get cathartic and have a psychology session here for myself, but parents, we need your help because we're developing a plan. And I think, Mr. Spalding, what we had said last year was this is going to be this year is going to be a building year. We can probably go back and watch one of those meetings to where we're going to track this data, but really next year is when we should see the turning point from getting all the different education materials, getting the teachers trained up and acclimated to it, getting the teams working together, minimizing the transition at the end of each school year, and try to get retention of teachers so that there's that familiarity between, even siblings and moms and dads. I mean, they're probably people that know teachers here that, taught them or similar, close to them, whenever they were young. So it's a lot bigger than just, like, yes, I'm with you with these numbers need to improve, because while we can sit here and talk and we know that most of our kids are going to be okay and they're getting a good solid education, it's just we want the community to grow outside of us, right? So you got the select board trying to grow the community. Part of that growth is a school system, which I think if the parents came and took a tour of the school and saw the good things and saw how great Newport is as a community and how everybody helps out and steps up and participates in everything, that they would know, like, yes, my child will succeed because I will help them wherever there's a gap in education or anything else. And it goes back to the parents at the end of the day. Like, I'm all about parent being held accountable and being responsible for their children's behavior, their children's performance. It all goes back to parents and guardians.
What do you need from this board? I mean, the things that we can give you, it's hard like now because we're out of budget season, so if you say teachers, I can't give you what I can't give you, you know what I'm saying? But if there's other things that we can do, what can we do,
Well, you heard me last year, and we added more Title I reading teachers, and we appreciate that. I think now, finding a way to help this community value education. Because right now, a lot of reasons, I had a student who didn't show progress, actually went down. Met with parents several times throughout the year, but for whatever reason, there was no reading at home, there was no practice at home, there was no concern that that student was not. You or I would have been freaking out and doing everything we could, but we need to find a way to help our families value education and then reinforce that when we say, maybe your student needs to stay after school. And I'm sure Mrs. Lagoon is going to get phone calls with complaints about that. And that's when we all need your backup. Because we're doing it for the kids. That's why we're doing it.
I guess this is a reiteration of the same thing. We have to do something. I understand that we've made improvements and it takes a while for the fruition. When you plant your tomatoes, it takes a while for them to come out. But consistently, if you have a bad crop, year after year, you either relocate your gardener, or garden, one or the other. Something has to change. So, and I don't have the answer, but I do know that the thinking process itself, to me, is greater than education. You take an engine apart, and if you can figure out how it works, you can put it back together. But if you look at all of the pieces, it's probably not going to work. So what has to happen? So we have to teach the thought process, and then when that thought process is applied to math, reading, or anything, it works. But who am I to say? So since 1990 to now, it's been 33 years And I've seen the school district go through many, many changeovers and many great ideas that changed very little. So, I'm not ready to drink the Kool-Aid. So, I say, as a board, we need to decide, look for something, some way. Somebody else who has success is where I would look. I guess I'd look at New Hampshire test scores and find out who was the greatest improvement. And when that's found, then bring those people to us or go to them somehow, figure out what they did to change where they were. There's got to be a solution out there. But nationwide, I understand, we're not doing our job. So, I guess I've said too much, but I can't accept the numbers.
Money. That's who has the best test scores, is money. And if we go with your garden analogy, and forgive me because my blood pressure is probably through the roof right now. If we go with your garden analogy, we have relocated the garden. We have found a new gardener. You need to give it some time. I am perfectly fine if you say that these are unacceptable. But if you want numbers that look good, then just change them to what you want them to be, because you need to give it some time.
I'm looking for honest numbers, and these are honest numbers.
They are honest numbers.
And
So,
those are what makes change, no matter what you're doing in life. If in fact you decide to make a widget and it doesn't sell, then you don't stop selling widgets, you figure out how to sell them or how to make them differently or cheaper or something. But you have to apply yourself to it in a vigorous manner with these type of numbers. I know it's money. For a matter of fact, I've argued all along. And so I'm going to bookend what I've said here, and I'm going to start with another one. A student is entitled to an education, a public education, by law. But if her district has a lot of money, his has 75% of that money, and hers has 25% of that money, and his has 10% of that money, how in hell is it fair? How constitutionally? If I have a right to do anything, I have a right to do it anywhere in New Hampshire, within the Constitution. But yet, because the strangulation of money to the poorer communities by the rich who have the votes and the legislature, how is that constitutional? But we fought that battle and we lost, essentially. Now we're fighting it again. It drags on for a long period of time. So I'm not even sure that our process is the solution, because the process appears to be rigged for the rich. Now have I said something you wanted to hear?
no, sorry. You said the word processes, and you said it correctly, and Steve appreciates you for that. I'm sorry.
It's an inside joke.
It's an inside joke. Sorry.
That had nothing to do with you.
I'm sorry. I apologize. That was a distraction.
So I guess that's the dilemma. I do understand money would change it. I mean, if I was a teacher and I could get X over here and X minus over there, I'd go to X. And that's the reality of it. It's very sad.
Except for our dedicated set of teachers that know and love Newport. Appreciate y'all. Yes, sir.
When you look at this coming from me is going to seem different. I'm not a big social economic, I don't personally believe in that. I think anyone can come from anything and become anything they want. But we already say money, but I don't think it's necessarily that dollar bill that's so different. But in these communities that have more money, like a Sunapee, I think, and Jenna could disagree or agree, she would know better, you work there, but like, I feel like the value of education in Sunapee to their citizens is higher than the value of education to Newport, to our citizens here. Would that
Goes
be?
back to what,
And so that's a culture thing that you have to change, that you can throw all the money in the world at it. If a kid still doesn't care, you're never going to get anywhere where you're trying to go. So we need to, like she said perfectly, Ms. Ferguson said, we need to find a way to instill that in our community, to put more value in that. And as far as kids staying after school, or like, I'm telling you right now, any board that sat here and I don't know how long, things like that will pass this board so easy when it comes to those things. So now's the time, if any time is the time to do it, is if that's what you need, like whatever you need, as far as those things go, especially like I said, it's hard for us to be like, we can get you more teachers, because that's a challenge, right? It's the voters have to pass a budget, but any of that, like discipline, any of those things, like I think you have a board here that's like, well, no, we don't believe that this should be, your classroom shouldn't be getting evacuated once a day by a student destroying, like it should not happen. And this board, I believe, is very strong on that. And so if there's things like, hey, we need to, these kids need to stay after school, that are, okay, I'm telling you, bring it forward, make it, you have this board support. I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I just have a feeling you have the support that you need. We just need to know what it is. You guys are there every day. We're not. We're trying our best to juggle numbers and what you say and what, you know, everyone else is saying. The cultural thing is something we all can work on for sure. But what is it you need?
well, part of what you were doing when you first got here was trying to engage the community and get, you know, with the book bags and going to all the different things and being involved with the community, is seeing, you know, you and your administrators out there, any of us that show up, and having those conversations and being, you know, present out in the community. I think that helps with the influence and the home life, in the sense of it's rallying the community around it. Like, school's important. It's not just winning football games. It's academic success and winning football games. And academic success doesn't mean all A's and scoring 100% on your task tests. It just means showing up, being prepared, keeping quiet whenever everybody else is taking a test, being respectful of others, not thinking it's funny if you cuss at somebody or whatever else. I mean, that's like a cultural thing that exists in Newport that, and I think I told the story, I don't know if I told it to the board, but when I went last fall and visited Texas, whenever a kid was doing something out of control at the football stadium, and they have like a college-sized football stadium for a 4A high school, it's gigantic, any parent or adult that says, hey, calm down, and the kid's like, yes sir, yes ma'am, and they go and they sit back down, there's no lip, there's no, like, or talking back is what I mean by lip, but you know, there's no talking back, there's no sneering or snarling, it's yes ma'am, yes sir, and they go about their business. Or here, I told a young kid who picked up boards that shouldn't have been out there by the football field, I'm like, hey, don't touch those, you could hurt somebody, because there was a full football game going on, and he looked at me like he was going to knock me out with the board, and he was like in 3rd grade, and I'm pretty sure I knew one of the kids that was with him, but you know, from what I taught, it's just a different, it's just us working together, and it's going to take way more than us as a board, but us taking a stance saying, hey, our kids deserve better. We see a parent acting crazy, or, you know, I mean, we're all going to act crazy at football games, but you know what I'm talking about, the really distasteful, whatever, you know, talk to them, say, hey, you know, there's kids around here, act right. You're 30 some odd years old or older, act a little bit better, be a little bit more of a positive role model, and it's uncomfortable, and I think, to me, that's part of what needs to go on. Yes, ma'am.
So if we look at, Bert, to answer one of your questions, is what do we need, right? I just generated the list for you. We need community support, right? So that's changing the culture of the way people view school, the way to value education. We need teacher retention, because what's happening is the turnover is unbearable here. I mean, we're not bad this year, but you'll see later and how it's always been. But what's happening is our teacher retention is causing an impact on our seasoned teachers, because what ends up happening is
the seasoned teachers are now having to take on more, and that's how much more can they take, right? Because you're a seasoned teacher and you know what to do in your classroom, but now you're having to work with this teacher and this teacher and this teacher in their classrooms. So instead of having 15, 20 kids, you now have 60 kids and adults that you're all trying to train, right? And there's only so much they can take. Programs, which is the curriculum, right? Consistency, counseling groups, and supports in our school. I know we're putting in 2, I know Lisa had talked about, at one time, Richards had 2 guidance counselors, right, school counselors, to work with our population, and then we're down to 1. Fortunately, this year, we have 2 counselors that are going to be coming in, so we'll have 3. 1 that will be able to work with one population, and 2 that will be able to work with a different population of our students, right? Consistency. Right? Consistency, we've been working a lot on. Consistency among our buildings, consistency among what's going on in the classrooms, consistency on behaviors. If you can't do it in this classroom, you can't do it in this classroom, right? So we need to do that. And one of the big things is leveling the playing field, right? So what you're saying is we should be looking at other schools and see what we're doing. I'm a big supporter. I know firsthand that money doesn't make you where you want to be, right? And I also know firsthand that how many crutches that I could have on me that would put me on a different route. You know, if somebody said, oh, you know, because of this, you shouldn't be doing this. Because of this, you shouldn't be doing this, right? I think what needs to really happen is we need to start taking those crutches away and say, just because your home life isn't good doesn't mean that you can come to our building and act this way, right? Just because what happens, well, they have a really bad home life, so that's okay. No, it's not. And I think that's part of training, and that's part of consistency, right? They may have come from a bad home life, or they may not think. Instead, it should be, what can we do to offer supports to them and to their families, instead of saying, this is okay. It's not okay, but what can we give them to help them? And that's what we really need to be looking at. And so I think that's where we're heading. That's the direction that we're heading, by hiring these people that are going to come in and not only work with our kids, but they're also going to do groups with families. Having our family liaison that is going to be district-wide, that now is going to be able to deal with, you know, our families go out and give those supports, you know, okay, you're having these types of things happening, building those relationships. All right, here's some brochures or some pamphlets on some places you can go to get this help or get these supports. Having those supports for families, that's all these things that we're putting in place right now.
We know life consequences doesn't necessarily have to prohibit or limit education. It doesn't have to. But that all being said, that would be a minority case. We have to deal with the majority. And, you know, I'm just saying, with this discussion, with these numbers, this board has to leave here with some sort of a charge. And I feel it has to be tonight. Yes, we can say we can think it over. Yes, we can say we're doing all of this and it hasn't matured yet. Then we just got to keep paddling. We just got to keep going. We've got to find out that we can do better, because we cannot stay where we are. And that all being said, we take the future away from many because of the parents. I can't blame it all on the parents. For all intents and purposes, I've already told the story. I had none. And but 2 people made a decision. And so it's hard to sit here with a responsibility and look at these numbers. I'm having a real hard time with it. If we don't decide to go through with this, I won't run in March. We have to do something different, and that's not a threat. It's just a reality. I do not like to be behind, so we got to motivate somebody. We got to find a plan that somebody else is using, something like that. I'm all for that. But for being through so many, in 1990 they came in with this new program that's going to help us, and we've been through at least 4 of them that I know of before I ever got back into the school system without thinking of it. And 2 of my kids went through the system. here in Newport. So maybe I'm being unrealistic. But I don't want to be part of a failure. Is this a failure? Well, I guess not, but it certainly isn't a success. So we got to figure it out somewhere along, and if we don't put our minds to it, it won't happen. So let's think about it and put it on the next agenda as a discussion between teachers, administration, etc., as to what could happen. Brainstorm it. But that's just me.
Yeah, I almost say like, and I don't like committees, because committees don't seem to ever, like, it just, I don't know. But we need to work together as a board, as a community, as teachers, the whole bit, and figure out what we can do to make this education matter more in Newport, right? And I don't think it's something just this board can do. And I think we're at the perfect place in Newport right now to do something like this. We've had major changes everywhere, here, town. Now is the point. Now is the part of rebuilding and making our community better. And this is, I think, something that it's a challenge, because now you're fighting society. And, you know, why is China do better than us? Because society is completely different. You will do better. That's how it is. Here, it's like, oh, you don't want to play nice today? That's okay. Maybe tomorrow. Like, no. So I think we have to raise our expectations. Like Donna said, okay, you come from a bad home, but you're not going to disrupt the class. Your expectations are still the same. We expect you to learn and do everything just like everybody else. And I think we're on a path. I mean, we made so many changes, like at the middle school and the high school. I don't know if we made enough changes for Richards yet, but we could still be talking about that throughout the summer. Like I said, I'm looking ahead on like middle school, but I know we've made huge changes there that I think behavior's affected a lot of this stuff. And so I know we've made those changes, and we do need some time for that to work. But I agree with Bert. I'd be scared to death to sit here a year from now and Bryn's giving us the same numbers and they're no better. Because then I'm like, well, then why am I here? What am I doing to help the situation? Because obviously we're not doing it, right? But at the same time, we can't just jump ship and throw away everything we're doing and change to something else, because I think a lot of places do that, right? Well, let's try this brand new, amazing program that reinvents the wheel. No, it's not. Like, 1 + 1 is still 2. I think sometimes we overcomplicate it, but I feel like we're on the right path. As long as the teachers are supporting it, they're the ones that have to teach it. Yeah.
You want to finish with the middle school and high school?
Would you like me to finish with this?
Go ahead.
She's like, not really.
I will do whatever you.
No, well, I mean, everything that we just said applies.
Yeah.
It's across the board. I mean, but we still, just so the community sees the numbers, and we see the numbers on the screen. Yes, sir.
But the next point about that is, as we move from here to here, this is where we have to change. To me, it has to wash up through, because if a second grade teacher has a student that comes in and doesn't even know what the word alphabet is, that's a problem for that teacher. And if it exists for the third grade teacher. So if we, okay, now,
Triple up.
this is going to sound like I'm being funny, but I'm not. I'm being serious. 33% are at or above. Move those 33% above. Take the 66%, put them in another grade where you can focus on them. And let this group go. And then out of this group, when you get the 66s, they go in another group. We can't let them fail. And
That's essentially
Vertical
what the
learning.
VLCs are, yeah.
Yes.
And so I can see having the 60%ers with the 33s is helpful, because this child will come up with the right answer, and this child will learn from it, so he learns from the other pupils in the class. But we have to move the group. But anyways, it's obvious that I am not a happy camper, so I'm going to shut up. That's the end.
Middle school, 178 students completed the STAR reading assessment. Again, that's vocabulary skills, comprehension skills. 19% were on or above grade level. 181 students completed the STAR math assessment, and that number is different from reading because not all students finished or were in school. There might have been a couple of different reasons given that it was the end of the year. 18% of those students were on or above grade level in math. Going back to the growth and talking about the importance of that, 27% were high growth and 27% had typical growth. So again, that's more than half of our students who are showing progress. For New Hampshire SAS, again, that's our state assessment. 6, 7, and 8 all take the ELA and math assessment. Grade 8 is the only ones that take the science. In ELA, 21% of our students were on or above grade level, and last year that was 24%. 12% of our students were on or above in math, and that was the same as last year. 12% of our students were on or above grade level in science, and last year it was 29%. Next steps at the middle school, mid-year, kind of beginning of the year, some of the teachers started open up math. Again, this is the same one that we're going to be having at the middle school, or at the elementary school, so that will be a consistent program, K-8, which I don't believe has ever been happened here in Newport. Again, they will be part of that same comprehensive reading program that will happen before the beginning of school. For the 23-24 school year, we're also implementing a new science program. Again, they have been struggling to get materials and have a consistent program, and the turnover in the science department has also been pretty high, so hopefully this will help with those science scores. The English department is also starting to look closely at increasing the rigor, and I know we've talked about leveling the playing field and making, instead of saying our kids can't do that, saying they can't do it yet, and we're going to work to get them to where they need to be in order to be successful. And that will continue and will become more consistent across the board. Again, we already talked about ESS, the effective school solutions to support students' social, emotional, and mental well-being. And they will have that counselor. And something I didn't put in here is the addition of Ed being the assistant principal, which will be another support for that building, which is huge. And we all know that behaviors have been challenging at the middle school, and that certainly does affect the academic success or challenges with our students. The high school, not all students participate in the STAR assessment. It depends on how, they do in the fall, but not necessarily in the spring. If they showed proficiency and they were on grade level in the fall, then they didn't have to complete it. And that's been the practice the last several years. But 254 students completed the STAR reading assessment. 18% of those students were on or above grade level. 252 students completed the STAR math assessment. Oops, that shouldn't say taken by grades 1 through 5. And 20% of those students were on or above grade level, yeah.
So these 18 and 27% on grade level, those are the students that were not proficient.
Correct.
In the fall.
Correct.
So how many were proficient in the fall?
I did not look at that, but I can tell you that another time. I strictly looked at spring data this time.
Because but I think that would give a vastly different picture
Yeah.
if we had a significant percentage that were proficient at the beginning of the year. Yeah.
Yeah, I apologize, I didn't
that's
think
okay.
about it that way. Thinking about the growth of our high school students, and again, these are the ones that took it in the fall and in the spring. 21% of the students had high growth and 25% had typical growth. That's just under half of the students who participated in both the fall and spring assessment. The only assessment that they take in the high school for the state assessment is the New Hampshire SAS for Science. And only 11th graders take that. So 12% of our students were on or above grade level in science, and last year it was 21. I just realized I did not include SAT data. So I can do that next time. Yeah.
But it would be challenging to compare. If they only take it in 11th grade, I don't think it's fair necessarily to just get to kind of take it with a grain of salt. You're not comparing apples to apples.
No, you're not, but it's just,
Like SAT just as a snapshot.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it would be a snapshot, but just to see how our kids did on the SAT. Same with the science is kind of tricky because they only do it in 5th, 8th, and 11th. So it's really hard. It's like a snapshot.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. The
Yeah.
12% of kids,
Totally different group of kids.
totally different group of kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you think about like how COVID affected that group of students, I think you know, you take that into consideration too. Carrie has been working a lot on getting intervention programs, and this isn't just for high school, this is really across the board, because we didn't really have any consistent intervention programs, so she's been working on that, so purchase of and training of those programs, and to look closely at what we already have. For example, Exact Path, I just today set up some trainings for our administrators so that they have an idea of what is available with Exact Path, because what that does is it takes their STAR assessment and it provides them with a learning path, lessons that they can complete during intervention time, during class time, whatever is appropriate, on skills that they're missing. So that will be another support that we have. Some teachers are already using it, but it's not, we just need more training and more awareness, especially given all of the turnover that we've had in the past half dozen years or so. We're also going to be taking a closer look at the math and ELA curriculum just to make sure that everything is in alignment with high school. But we spent a lot of time focusing on Richards, as we've talked about before. So, and that is the end.
Thank you. And generated some good conversation. We got some work to do. You got some stuff you asked us for, which I did not write down, so I need to get that list from you later, please. I saw you write it down, but,
Oh, my stuff that I wrote?
yeah. I was too busy listening. So I'm
No,
taking
that's
notes.
fine.
Just a short note. Out of the 254 students, another way of looking at it, 54 were above, 200 below.
And that's typically what you're going to find across New Hampshire, like your average schools like ours. Because I looked at the data before I ran for school board, and it's not particular to Newport. It's not, you know what I'm saying? So there's hope out there, and it starts at home. It starts with the act of going and getting an education being important enough for the parents to say, hey, act right, do what you're supposed to do, make good grades, or make the best grades that you can. Don't be disrespectful. I mean, all those kind of little things add up, like behavior can negatively impact performance on any given day as they're taking a test.
Stephen, it's been so long that we've fought this money problem that the migration of teachers as to where they can make money in some cases. It seems that we, as a government, meaning New Hampshire, the legislature, can't get through the constitutional part of it and fund it equally for every student in this state. If that happened, wow, what a change. But that all being said, what do we do here? We need to improve the numbers. Am I looking for 99% or above? No, it won't happen. I said I'd shut up, and I guess I better.
Every time you say that. Well, thank you. We'll be getting some updates on it, I'm sure, from you. All right, update on the bus barn?
Yes, so the town has been in touch with their attorneys and have informed me and informed them of their desire to create a bus barn agreement with the school. As of right now, we do not have the agreement, but I feel very confident that it'll be coming soon. As the documents start to evolve, I'll provide updates as they occur. But I was told that even though with the absence of this agreement, the school is free to utilize the traditional bus storage spaces the two bays, as it has in the recent years. So there hasn't been any issues aligned with that. I would also like to add that I know that we went, Ed and Rob, oh, sorry, Rob is the new BA. That's why I don't need math. See, I got 2 BAs. But they went over today or yesterday, I don't remember when you went over, the last few days, over there, and our employees said that there is a huge change in the relationships with the town right now, are working at the garage area with them, so.
Positive change?
Positive change, yes, a lot more positive change, a lot of communication, a lot of conversations now taking place. They're working together now, so a lot of positive things are already starting to happen over there, so that was nice. I think, was that yesterday?
Yes.
Yesterday, yeah. Yeah, so,
Proposals are going to come back to the board for our approval.
yes, yeah, as soon as I get their agreement, I'm gonna bring it back to the board for approval.
Okay, because
Oh, I figured that would happen.
their agreement is their agreement, and I will assume that it will be different now, but still, the board has to peruse it because it is a long-term lease.
All right, next we have July 27th meeting.
Yes, so I just wanted to see if the board, the meeting on July 27th, I know we had talked last meeting to see if we were going to have the July 27th meeting. If I could put my 2 cents in, I would like to take vacation that week, so I would prefer that we didn't. But if you did, I would come that night, so that's up to the board if they want to have a meeting that evening.
That's easy enough, just take us on a cruise.
I wish I was going on a cruise, that'd be nice.
Oh, wait a minute, the last vacation she went on had its bumps in it.
I'm not getting on a plane for a little while
So,
right
I'm
now.
not sure I'll be on the same boat.
I've flown with her, it's fine.
Anyhow,
Jenna, you got any thoughts on July?
I don't think we have, I mean, depending on how, when we discuss the Croydon contract upcoming, I don't see any need to have it on July 27th. Handbooks are coming, the first meeting of August, I believe, is the
August 10th.
deadline. So I do not see the need to have it.
I'm flexible, I'll be here any day you call.
So do we need to vote on that, or?
Nope.
No, I don't think so. I think it's just that way people know what's going on.
Thank you.
just trying to make sure we'll have a quorum here, that's all. Now, what we will have, I'll be here also. I'll be more timely than I was today.
Well, it looks like we're going to cancel that meeting.
We're going to give you a target.
So we'll carry over, and that'll give us some time to think about how we're going to engage the community. help spread the joys of being responsible in life. What else we got? Audit?
Yes, so in your packets above, they didn't come with you. This is just more of a conversational piece that I want to have with you. These are the auditors that we use that audit our books every year. And so what this is every year, this is brought to the board just to get your permission for me to sign it, to allow them to audit our books. It's the same one that we've been using for years.
And the reason for that is that the auditors technically work for the board. They don't work for the administration. So you're hiring the auditor, to check the books. So
it's just giving me permission to sign.
This document.
this is pretty much a matter of course, isn't it? Aren't we required to do that?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
I thought so, yeah, okay.
Ed, Robertson Green, when did they come in to this district, year, approximate year?
I would say it's at least 5 or 6 years, and maybe more. But I know it's at least 5 because they were here before me for a couple years. And
Okay, so they came in, and they're the ones that got us through the problems.
oh yeah.
And that being said, you're happy with them?
Yes, very much.
Fired.
No.
And the new business administrator, your knowledge of them is?
I haven't worked with them, but I know I've read some financial reports that were in the office that it's been consistent that they were doing the audits the past few years.
Now, that's actually a good thing, because you look at them through a different pair of eyes. So you want to vote?
Yes, I just need a vote so that way I can sign.
I would move Robertson Green, PLC, as our auditors.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Sign the order.
Sign it right now.
All right, Croydon contract update?
So I just wanted to, I know the last time we had talked about it, I just wanted to let, everyone be aware, and Jenna and Steve, you can kind of chime in a little bit, that we met with the representatives, 2 of the board members from Croydon yesterday, as well as their superintendent, and we sat down to go over a contract with them, and it actually was a very productive meeting, and I did up the contract and I sent it to the board, I think it was last week, to view. So I presented the one that we had talked about. They had a few changes. It wasn't anything major, but we'll go over that during non-public, and then come out of non-public if we're going to vote to move forward with that contract. And then I thought it was very productive. It went really, really well. It was. They were very happy. I think they were very happy when they left here, and they. The last email that I received, they thanked us for everything that we've been doing and we're doing, so that was nice.
That's a good sign.
Yeah, it was a great sign. It was really good when they got here and we got to sit down and talk. I think they were very concerned and worried when we had our last meeting, and I don't think they expected it to be as good and solid as it was. So.
Coming into something like that, that's a good position for us to be negotiating from.
I don't know. You guys are there.
You summed it up perfectly.
Well, thank you.
All right. New hires?
I gave it to you already because I knew you would.
I will move Ernesto Gonzalez for high school Spanish, MA plus 15, step 18, 61,870, and Bonnie Basher, BA step 3, special education teacher, 39,859.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes 5-0.
Welcome. And welcome back.
Yes.
Next, we have resignations.
Yes, so I have 2 resignations. I have an elementary school teacher, Patty Nix, will be resigned July 10th, as well as a special ed teacher, Sarah Nielsen. She is a middle school special ed teacher. The contract states that after July 1, that they are to keep the contract until a suitable replacement is found. So I'm asking the board to approve that once a suitable replacement is found, that they could move on. I have spoken to the superintendents of both schools, and they are aware of the contractual thing. And this is something that's in their teacher contract. So we're just holding them to their teacher, what's in their contract.
So help me to understand their time. They can leave and break their contract, or they have to stay on till you find somebody to replace them?
So technically, what their contract says is after July 1, if they break their contract, they're supposed to stay until a suitable replacement is found.
Okay. And they're doing that?
We hope. One would hope that's what they do.
Okay, thank you.
What is the supposed to? What's the wording that allows it to be supposed?
Well, no, there is no wording. I'm saying they should. They're in their contract, and Lisa probably could speak more, or maybe even Ed could speak more to that.
Well, it's not a slave contract, but we were...
Right, exactly. The contract states that if they are to take a job and sign a contract or a job at another school district after July 1, that they're actually supposed to stay and not leave Newport until a suitable replacement is found. So when I say they're supposed to stay, what I mean by that's what their contract says. What do we do if they leave?
You have to be tested. Hold back their last paycheck.
What, you can't even do that.
I don't know if you can do that.
What I personally do is I write a letter to the Department of Education,
Yeah.
writing my frustrations and put there and say, you know, this is what's happened because of it. I've also spoke at a hearing one time to voice my concern about that, and they had stated that, because years ago, what used to happen is if you were an educator and you signed a contract, you were obligated to be at that place for the time of your contract. If you left, they could take your license for that period of time, for that contractual year. So you wouldn't be able to teach anywhere. And so when I talked at the committee, that's one of the things that they brought up doing is something such as that, going back to that type of thing. But as of right now, I write a letter and I just, you know, say that I'm very concerned that we have teachers that have signed contracts that are leaving. Because as a district, we can't go to somebody and say, hey, you're done, I don't want you here anymore, because then we would have to pay them their contract. So, but we're hoping this, you know, we're working towards retaining teachers, right? And so we're hoping that this is not going to be an ongoing issue.
I mean, people come and people go, people get offers that they, figuratively speaking, just can't refuse, and I understand that.
Well, we're talking between $10,000 to $15,000 more for each one of them to go to a different district, so.
Yeah.
And when you have a family to support and all that stuff, right? Yeah.
Except like you do, you write the letter to the Department of Education, that gets into their file.
I don't even know if it goes in their file. I don't even know where it goes once it gets there, to be honest with you.
understand it goes in the file. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what I understand.
So I'm asking the board if they can just say, once their suitable replacement is found, that we're okay with them breaking their contract.
You're looking for us to take a vote?
Yes.
Question. So, as we look for the two, we've got to look for somebody else who, in all probability, is breaking their contract on the other end.
Sometimes that
Unless
happens.
they've been sit out for a year or two, that would be an exception to the rule.
We've hired teachers that have finished late or have moved.
And we had talked earlier about the number of departures from the district.
I have that next, after I get the vote, I'm gonna read all that to you.
You're holding it hostage for the vote?
Well, we just have to wait for the vote, because I don't want, I mean, I can tell you guys right now what it's been, unless you want to vote first, then
It's okay.
force the vote.
It makes a good laugh. We'll give you the vote first and then get the numbers.
I move to accept the resignations pending hiring of
Second.
Those positions.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Motion passes 5-0.
All right, so, what Bert had said the last couple of years, I did 5. So I'm gonna start at the 2018-2019 school year for paraeducators, right? So in 2018-2019, we had 10 paraeducators resign at this time. 19-20 school year, there was 9. 20-21 school year, there was 20. The 21-22,
21-22 was 20.
so yes, well, 18-19 was 10.
10,
19-20 was 9. 20-21 was 20. 21-22 was 18. And the last school year, the 22-23 was 8.
8.
8. Yeah. And so that was paraeducators. When we go to teachers, the 18-19 school year, there was 29. The 19-20, there was 15. The 20-21, there was 23. The 21-22, there was 26. And the 22-23, including the 2 that you just approved, there's 10.
Well.
How many paras do we have in our school system?
Do you know? Do you, Ed knew?
Yeah, it's like 50.
I was gonna say that.
Oh, 50.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, okay, I guess if I can talk about the bad numbers, I can talk about the good numbers. Wow, that's a significant improvement. So teacher retention is a part of what we're doing. That's great. I want to do the numbers again. Would you read them again for us, please?
Teachers and paras?
Teachers.
Teachers, 18-19 school year, 29. 19-20 school year, 15. 20-21 school year, 23. 21-22 school year, 26. 22-23 school year, 10.
And we see the same on paras. 19-20 was comparable, and 18-19, but then we had a high loss of 20, and then 18 and 8. So that's an improvement.
Well, those paras that left this year, do you count those that left at any point during this year?
Yes.
So, I mean, you haven't lost any since the contract passed, right?
Correct.
So,
Well, we've lost a few,
okay,
but we've also gained.
right. So
We've
it's
also,
like,
I would say that, I mean, we gained.
We've gained more than we've lost.
Yeah, we've gained more than we've lost. But that contract, again, doesn't start till next year, so. So, yeah, so of course, I mean, when we look at the numbers, yeah, it's good, but I still think we can do better. And so that's the goal. I know Ed's goal was 0. We have a 0 in there, Ed. So, and we have a 1, so maybe next year we'll be at 1, right? So, but that's the goal, to get that even lower next year, so.
All right, committee report outs. I'm pulling out my phone, not to check a text message, but I have my committee snapshot on here just to update, so I don't want anybody to think I'm texting. Looking at this. All right, so for the CTE, the welding lab and cosmetology is underway. They've demolished the business lab. The framing and cosmetology should have started up. And health science begins in the middle of August at the latest. And then the chimney work was supposed to start this week. And then also we reviewed the RTA letters, which they don't have the acronym for RTA. But it's basically like the bids, right?
Correct, it's accepting of
The accepting of the bids. So we reviewed It doesn't have the number on here, but quite a few of the bids, and almost every case, the low bidder was selected. There were two where, even though they looked like they were the low bidder, they didn't do the bid properly. They did it in phases, and then when you add the phases up, it was more expensive, if that makes sense. So I just say that because it's not always the lowest bid that you go with. You have to look at the whole thing. So we went through quite a few of those. I want to say it was about 15.
I think it was 17. There was 11 and 6. Yeah.
And most of those were with phase 1 or some phase 2.
6 were in phase 1 and 11 were in phase 2.
Stored it wrong in my memory. And that was about it. Otherwise, there's work going on. I mean, that was the main thing, was approving the bids, and y'all did a walkthrough. That's going well. I don't know if y'all been over there to look at it, but you got to just wear a hard hat if you go into the area.
The biggest challenge, we had another meeting this morning, and the biggest challenge is acquiring materials. I think pretty common in any construction project. And so we've got some delays, but Harvey is working on either substituting materials that are acceptable or doing something temporary that buys us the extra 3 or 4 weeks we need to get the materials that we are expecting. So one way or the other, we will have spaces done so that students can return to school in September.
A lot of work going on at the high school. I'm sure at the Richards as well, but a lot going on at the high school. CTE high school. Any other committee report outs? Policy meeting coming up in a few weeks.
Yep.
All right, first read for new policies. IHBAA. This is a totally new one.
Yes, this is a brand-new policy. Let me just grab mine. That it's required by law that we have this policy, and it talks about the process for special education and the requirements for if a child is how many days, if a referral comes in, how many days we can use before we have to do an evaluation, and what the process is for that, getting parent signatures. So that's what this talks all about, is the policies and the procedures that we have to go through by law for special education. Evaluations.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I move to approve the first read of IHBAA, evaluation requirements for children with specific learning disabilities.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right, passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Next, we have EBBD, indoor air and water quality.
One of the things I would like for Ed to speak on is we added in the red under B, where it says expenditures greater than 15,000, and I'd like for Ed to speak on that piece.
Yeah, so when I read that, what I suggested would be better language than that is that any expenditures would be done under our purchasing policies. Right, what am I trying to say? Would meet all of our purchasing policies.
Instead of putting a dollar amount.
Right, because dollar amounts change over time, whereas we've got a policy. If we follow the policy in purchasing, then that should be sufficient.
So you're recommending the final sentence of B being struck and just say, superintendent designee will make recommendations to the board in accordance with
our.
Policy, and then take out the 15,000.
Yep. Did you want to say recommendation to the board?
I think that's a given that whatever the solution is to issues brought up by that testing,
Yeah.
we would bring recommendations to the board, and that any solution would be in accordance with our purchasing policy.
Perfect. So greater than $15,000, removing those words and basically putting in done under purchase, we'll talk a little, done. And so I'll bring this to a second read with that verbiage done differently, if that's what the board sees fit.
That makes sense to me, because that could change as inflation goes up. You know, it'll just be whatever the policy says. That makes, because that's more of a procedure too, right? So then you take the procedure out, the 15,000, and refer to another policy. Anybody else got any comments? Do we,
I don't know if you wanted to
you want to,
do the other policy that we'll vote on, do the first reads together, JICK.
I actually have, and you may want to, I'm not sure exactly what you want to do with that one, but what I have done is, you also have another updated, we had a policy, a bullying workshop the other day with the company again, and they made additional changes to this policy, the JICK policy, so I don't know if you want to move this to the second read, and then you guys can have the opportunity to read the newer version, the one that I just handed out to you. And I can send this to you again as well. But you would go with the one that I just gave you, not the one that was in your packet.
Can I ask a question about that policy? Not to pull a Bert, but I'm going to say there's no page number, so on 1, 2, 3, 4, page 5.
Are you counting back-to-back pages?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Where it says move to number 1 upon receipt of a report of bullying.
So the new one that you have, the newest one
Yes.
that I just gave you should not say move to 1.
Right, I just have a question, but that's just where my question is,
Okay.
unless it's changed. Let me take a look at it. Yeah, no, I still have the question.
Okay, this is upon receipt?
Upon receipt of a report of bullying.
Yep.
The principal shall. I understand that the principal will do the determination form, but do we have, please correct my memory, do we have like a group or a committee that investigates the reports of bullying? Okay, I don't feel like that translated in here for whatever
Well, I
reason.
think it goes in. We're redoing all of our forms as well.
Okay.
And so the very first form, so if the principal gets a report in of bullying,
Yeah.
what we have is a form that they go through to determine if it is indeed bullying, or if it's harassment, or if it's just kids being disrespectful. And then what they'll do is they'll take that form and they'll send it to the committee, for the committee to look at, and then if the committee agrees, then that form will go home to the parent, so that they can see what steps they took. Then if it moves to the next level, then it goes into an investigation, and then the investigation then goes to the team. So we have this whole big process now.
Right.
That
That's what
goes.
was up here, was all.
Yeah, all that stuff was our
Okay.
process and stuff. That
Okay.
was-
And then the other question I had was the paragraph directly above it. Please note that bullying incidents, I guess for lack of a better word, almost a statute of limitations on bullying of incidents reported 3 or more months after the occurrence will not be investigated by district personnel. I just wanted to know the reasoning behind that.
Well, because what ends up happening is that not enough people remember, or they don't know, and so it becomes invalid. And sometimes what ends up happening is somebody will say, well, they were mean to my kids, so like 6 months ago, they did this, and so we have to put a time frame on it, because then we'll say, well, last year this happened, and
So I would move EBBD, indoor air and water quality, and JICK, public safety and violence prevention bullying.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I will
Opposed?
I will abstain.
Abstained, got one abstention. Passes 401. Mr. Spalding abstained. Next, you wanted to,
Yeah, well, I just want to tell you, I took out the KCD policy, and I wanted to tell you why, because that was the public gift and donations. We had talked about that at our last meeting, so I just wanted to explain to you why that I took it out. It was just a new House bill passed, that the amount is actually going up to like $50,000. And so for me to bring it to you now, and then have to bring it to you again in the fall, didn't make sense to me, and so I figured that I would just bring this one forward to you in the fall once the New Hampshire School Board Association has drafted the new policy with all the recommendations that go in the House bill.
makes sense. All right, so second read revised, JFAB, admission of tuition of non-resident students.
So I think I gave everybody that new policy that was, that's read. And so the reason that you have that policy is that policy actually goes along with the Croydon contract. So some of the language I had to change when we were talking with them about some of the things that they wanted in or we wanted in. I had to change the language in this policy to go with what the board recommended that I changed in the Croydon contract, as well as what Croydon recommended as well. So that goes along with the policy, the contract, and will go along with all contracts moving forward.
I would move JFAB, admission of tuition and non-resident students.
Second, discussion?
Yeah, I'll second the discussion. Page 1, below admissions. Go down 2 lines below admissions. You've got RSA 193:12. Please remove the space. Go up to the top line in red to the far right. RSA 193:12, no space. That way somebody can't change the numbers. It's just what's done. Just remove the space. And then,
I'm sorry, you say remove just
Just remove the space on that 1, right? Yeah, okay.
and of course, we're going to change the date on approved by.
yes.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes 5-0.
And the last thing, oh, I'm sorry, can I go? This is the EHR, the one I asked you to add.
Yeah, that was the discussion you were going to talk about.
This is the this is the second one. So you also have a policy that I gave you that should be up above, and I just gave it to you for reference. It's not anything. I'm asking the board if they could please, this policy is not a required policy, I just want to make sure you know that. I'm asking if we can suspend this policy on a temporary basis, only because of the fact that under the what says manner of request, it says that we have to send it to an email address. It's rtk@sau43.org. We've been having some major technical difficulty with that email address, and so we received a right to know, and I did not get it. It was supposed to come to us, but it didn't, and we had a hard time retrieving it, and so we went past the 5 days. And so I'm hoping that we could suspend this policy for right now, so that way, it's just coming, they can still do a right to know, obviously, but because it's in policy that we have to have this email address that's not working, I would like to just suspend it so that way we can look for an alternative way, if necessary, for it to get to us. So it could be by mail, it could be dropped off, those types of things. I think that we don't technically in policy have to say that we have to have an email address.
Mr. Swab.
I should think right-to-know requests, because I've made one or two of them, should be as simple as possible. Any communication by a citizen to you or a board member that is asking for documentation should in fact not have to jump through hoops to get there. So the law says reasonably described. It doesn't say reasonably described to a particular person. And that would be, I should think, to any board member or to superintendent, business administrator, anyone in a position to understand what the law is and what it means. To make it complex to get through and to put things in the middle, I can't support. It is really gives the citizen an opportunity to pull out information. So that being said, the wording should go closer to the statute.
That's why I want to suspend this for right now so we can work on it.
Yes. Well, suspend it, period. And come back to us with language that would make it easier for everyone to put in a right-to-know request.
Okay, so I can,
So send to policy, is that what you have to, that's what you're thinking?
I move that we suspend policy E.
Hang on a second. Tim has.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I think you should take this policy and send it to the policy committee. And then I agree with Mr. Spalding, it should just be something in writing, whether it's they drop off a letter to the secretary requesting it, or they send an email. And obviously, if this email address isn't working, then we just need to immediately resolve that, get rid of that. The other thing I saw in here is the zip code is 03733. It should be 03773. But
To make a requirement that it goes through, the person does the requirement, it gets into the system and it doesn't get taken out. It's a violation of the law by the school district. Because the person did their reasonably described, well, okay, but it didn't go through. So that all being said, we need to make it easy. And I should think that administration could word it to the point where any citizen, whether they're speak English or Spanish or whatever, get through it.
All right, so your motion?
I was gonna,
I'm sorry.
no, I interrupted, I didn't see Tim's hand up, I'm sorry, Tim. I move that we suspend policy EHR, administrative procedures for responding to right-to-know requests, and that I go back to policy committee.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? I would just say that in the meantime, obviously, just because we suspend this doesn't mean we don't do right to know requests.
Right.
In a timely manner. I mean, I know we all know that, I'm just saying that so that.
Steve, one thing I noticed, I didn't notice before, but on our non-public minutes, on the date on the top says 2022 and not 2023. I don't think no one noticed that.
Well, since I'm the one that does those minutes, Tim, I appreciate you. It's me keeping you on your toes. I know how, attention to detail is important. So, we need to take a motion to amend these minutes to reflect the correct year. All right. Can I do that now that we've already approved them? Sorry, I just crossed out.
It's the date.
changed.
It's a clerical correction, so.
It's not changing anything.
2 minutes we've already approved.
We already approved them, but
Just because
the date,
I didn't notice it before, but it says 2022, it should be 2023. I got that.
Yeah, we just undo the motion that we did, or amend the motion that we did, either one. Yep.
so amend
The date.
the date on the non-public minutes for June 16th, 2023 to accurately reflect the year of previously approved non-public minutes of said date.
On this date.
Second, yeah.
Wow.
Second?
Second, third.
All those in favor? Aye.
I think
I'll have to rewatch that
Yeah.
and find out if we, did we complete that?
Don't think on it too long, Jeff.
Yeah, I won't,
Just scramble your brain.
yes.
All right. Next, we have, any comments from administration? Anybody on your team got anything?
I talked a lot tonight, I think I'm good.
Sure.
All right, so summer school's in full swing. Because of all of the construction that is going on at the high school, all of the summer school and credit recovery is occurring at Richards, so Richards is very, very busy over there. But it's amazing to see all the kids in there they're having a great time. I was there Wednesday. Unfortunately, their very first field trip on Wednesday was canceled because of the washed out roads in the rain, so they couldn't get to either location, and the second part was one of them was to the beach, and I didn't feel it would be very safe, and I know the team agreed that it wouldn't be very safe to bring kids in the water currently with the weather the way it's been, so we wanted to shy away from I know. We could have just brought them down here, but
Swimming at Horsey Park.
yeah. But they still had a great time, and we had, and I always call it the wrong name. What is the truck that came?
Kona Ice.
Kona Ice. I was calling it Corona Ice, and the staff was like, "What's coming?"
All staff's like, oh my God, I'm for summer school this year.
Is that the knockoff version of Hawaiian Ice?
Yeah. So what it is? It's like an ice cream truck, but it has ice, shaved ice, and the kids get to pick different.
It's like snow
flavors.
cones.
Yeah, it's like a
Oh,
snow
no,
cone.
but
Yeah. So
the real company is called Hawaiian Ice.
yes.
Is that coming?
They already came.
Came.
They.
It was the last.
It was a really last minute thing.
If Corona Ice wants to attend.
I know. Well, there's retention. So it's been doing some really great, they've been doing some really great things over there, so it's really good to see the kids in the building enjoying the activities that they're doing. They do academic in the morning, and in the afternoon they have some fun times that they do, some activities that they do, so it's really good to see. I will say that the maintenance crew has been really, I see them, I went to the high school this morning, and they are just, but they were working so quickly on the first floor, and when I walked up to the second floor, they were up there working so quickly, so they're just flying around the buildings trying to get everything done, because they really can't focus on Richards right now because they've got all the kids in there, so they're really focusing on getting some of the stuff at the high school, but then they also have all the construction that's going on in the high school, including what, I don't know, what are those called?
HVAC.
The HVAC people being in there as well, so they're working really hard to get all of this done, and if you walk around the building, you'd be like, ooh, is this going to be open in time for school? But it will be. They're working really fast. It's great to see. They're all working together as a really great team and getting it all done, so it's good to see them doing that.
Yeah. Any board communication, we'll just start with Mr. Jones and work our way over to B.
I have a question that might not be related to exactly what we're doing right now, but how are we working on revising the plumbing system to get the lead out of the high school, middle school building? That seems to me like that'd be a pretty involved project.
Well, I know that the lead problem is in all of our buildings, and they're putting in the water systems that are the filters in there. Rodney came and gave a Yeah, he gave a presentation on the filtering systems that they're putting in place there. Then they have to send the water out for testing again and get the approvals before they can do that. But you'll see signs on some of them that says, hand washing only, do not drink. that type
I've
of
seen that.
stuff. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Everything's pretty good till we got the bad numbers tonight. But
So not very long.
we've got to, I'd like to see us make a motion to do something. I just got a feeling that it's not going to be tended to. I think the first thing we need to do is we need to find another Kathy, maybe 5 more. Somebody's got to go down, and the state of New Hampshire has got to figure this out. Or some real smart lawyer's got to figure out, hey, this kid isn't getting what that kid gets.
We're already in the middle of a lawsuit right now.
We've signed on to a lawsuit that's out right now in the judge's hands about adequacy.
But you do know that this is the third time,
Yeah.
in reality, between all of the setbacks, okay? So the underlying problem is not, a judge isn't coming out and saying, okay, we got all the rich people sitting on that side, we got all the poor people on this side, and all of those people are dumping money in like crazy, and we don't, our voice is drowned out, obviously, because the Constitution is clear. Cherish is the same cherish for all communities in the state, and those who have more money, we need to pick their pockets somehow.
Yeah, I'm at the high school graduate. I'm in the partner room, and so I see the amount of work being done there with like maintenance, and kind of a shout out to Scott, who's having to mud the walls that me and my daughter put up, which I knew weren't going to be an easy task because mudding is not fun, and that's why I didn't put it in my contract, because I am horrible at mudding. But he is doing a great job. Frog helped him with a door I had an issue with, so I got a little lesson there on how to hang a door, because usually I have my wife do it, because I'm just not good at it. But he taught me some things, Steve, so I can show you. I think I have a better idea now. But Maine is doing this is their busy time of year, obviously, and they're doing a great job. And you should have seen it a month ago. It's changed drastically since then. I'm very confident they'll have it together. As far as our community, I think this is we're at a point now where more than ever, community needs to come together, and a lot of changes have happened on the town side of things, and now is a rebuilding period, I believe, for our town, for retaining our employees and everywhere. I'm excited. I'm sure Paul's not excited, but Paul is the interim town manager, and I'm very confident he'll do a good job in the meantime as we search for a new town manager. I told him he should keep the position full-time, and he told me I was crazy. But yeah, I think that kind of goes along with the whole trying to change the culture in town and trying to put more value in education that I want to see us work on for sure. So maybe an agenda item next meeting that we have or something to get more input from our community on how we can work on that.
Oh, good.
Really?
Really.
Well, I'll take up your time then.
Okay.
Oh, get comfortable. No, to your point, Mr. Spalding, I think from my perspective as one of the 5 of us that sits on the board is, and kind of Tim Beard kind of hit on it there, I think we're almost to the point to where we need to invite parents in and look them in the eye and say, hey, education is important, and it starts at home, whether you realize it or not, or however we generate this conversation, because there's a big difference, and I'm not going to put anybody on the spot, and you might even actually already have said it earlier, but you can tell the difference between a parent that's involved and wants their child to succeed and do well at school versus one that doesn't care. And there's a difference, and there's some people that don't really care. Is that a fair statement? Or you don't have to make
They
it.
don't know how.
Okay.
Or there
Well,
are
that's-
other things, I mean, they,
But yeah, there's many different things, so thank you. I'm looking at the worst case scenario, there's probably a few that don't care. But the others are, they don't know how, they don't know where to direct their energy, and thank you for correcting me on that, because I'm looking at the worst case scenario, and really, we're not at the worst case across the community. There are some, but we need to focus on how do we affect the culture of the whole town to where it's important. It's important to do well, and I think at some point it was probably there, and it's probably still there, and maybe that's what the conversation needs to be, is like, what is it, what do you need from us, and because this is what we think we need from you. And I'm only talking as a board member, not as a teacher, so I probably way off base a little bit, going off my own observations as a parent, that, you know, I held my kid accountable and still do at college. You know, grades are important enough to me to where you're not going to get any support or help from me if you're not doing your share. And that's the way I do it. Doesn't mean it's the right way. It's probably the wrong way. By psychologists probably tell you that. But my daughter performs well. And so for me, I know that because I'm involved and whatever else, and her own personal desire for achievement works for us, but it doesn't work for everybody. And so I think it's finding that way to get everybody to the point to where it's not funny if you're disrespectful. It's not okay to cuss out anyone for just, you know, because you don't like what they're saying. I mean, that's a way of method of handling it, but you're not going to get anything in return for that. And so I think there's some steps that the administration has taken on the academic and the curriculum, the social, emotional, the curriculum, all of those features, but then there's also the whole village to raise a person. We got to work on the village from my perspective as someone who's only lived here for 5.5 years. Just my observations, yes.
On your topic, I'll answer the question. There are times that I can look back in my life when, like, I got up one morning and a switch was turned and things changed. Not my environment, but within. Kind of like a point where, wow, another brain cell came online, sort of thing. And I wonder, but I'm not asking, if members of the board have felt the same thing. But that being said, there's one point, and holding back is another. You're driving a herd of cattle along, and you got some that are slow. Do you slow the whole herd down? No. You've got to go forward. So holding children back, I say, is tantamount to child abuse, not holding them back. Because they are in the back of the herd for the complete education. Hold them back. They repeat. Somewhere there they turn on. Somewhere there they learn whatever they missed on a particular day, whatever it is. And sooner or later they'll launch out of that. We got to do something different. The business is sinking. The boat is sinking. It is wrong. It is just not right. We can save money, but can we figure out how to do things? Superintendent question. Can we hold children back?
For non-performance?
Per policy, yes, we can. But there's certain requirements that we have to hold students back, right? We have to look at the whole picture, because in some cases it can hurt them more than it can help them.
Are we doing that?
If a teacher would need to recommend that to their building principal, and then there would be a discussion with a family, I think that...
Have any teachers done that?
Do you know how many have been? I know that we've had a couple
We
held
have
back.
2 preschoolers that are not entering kindergarten this year.
Excuse me?
2 preschoolers that are not entering kindergarten because they're not ready, but
Preschoolers, I'd like to get into at least first, second, third grade. Any of that? Any holdbacks at all?
not this year.
What about in the middle or high school?
So we're looking at...
High school's different.
High school's, you have to earn credits. So if you don't make the credits, then you do.
Okay.
You stay a freshman if you don't get your credits. You don't necessarily stay back per se, but.
Doing nothing is not acceptable. Period. It's been too many years, and we've done too many things that that haven't materialized. Now, maybe now we are. But if, and I haven't got an answer. So, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, have there been any holdbacks this last year?
Not this last year.
Okay.
We just formulated
A flow chart that goes along with our policy that we will be, that's going to be rolling out regarding, because we have time frames when they can do that. And so we created a flow chart as an administration team, and we do have a flow chart that we will be rolling out next year for that purpose.
Okay. So is it right or wrong to say, if you hold back a child, it's bad for him? Or if you hold back a child, it is good for them?
It depends upon the situation. You can't, every child's an individual, so you really have to look at the whole child, not just one piece. And you can't say what's good for one is not good for the other. You can't.
Donna, I don't care what the words are that support it. When 2/3 are not making the grade, then there's got to be somebody at the bottom of that grade that is way behind, and to be way behind is depressing in the first place. If we're not doing it, and our numbers are this way, how can that be right? So, my opinion, need to do something.
Along that line, many years ago, 50 years ago, I was on the school board in South Hadley, Massachusetts. And we had, well, for probably not the correct way to say it, but we had a lot of troubled families. Okay, and these were pretty well-to-do families. They were tied into Mount Holyoke College in one way or another. So we, as a school board, asked if we could talk to some of the managers within the college and get some suggestions as to how to turn this situation around. There were a lot of suggestions that came about, but the one that seemed to stick was a quarterly meeting, like an assembly, with all the parents and the kids in a given range of grades. Okay, it wasn't everybody from kindergarten to 12th grade. It was gradient. It was like a gradient, because we wanted to talk to people who had similar age group problems. And one of the big suggestions, and it turned out to be very, very successful, was to have quarterly, and we called them assemblies, with the parents and the kids and the teachers involved. Not to have a dialogue, but to say to them, okay, here's where we are on the state scale. Here's where we were when we started this quarter. We're doing pretty well in math, we're doing not so well in English and history and civics. We are stinking. So what do y'all feel we need to do about it? And then, of course, you get an input from everybody, which is what we were looking for. And they had paper in front of them so they could just put one or two words on them to give us an idea what they were thinking about. Then we brought them back and we sat down as a school board and we talked about them. And the one that seemed to stick the best and do the best for us was that assembly idea. Matter of fact, there were parents that were asking us to do it again every quarter. Now that is very time consuming, but we had 2 counselors that were willing to take it on. And we ended up by increasing our grade performance from approximately 40% to 75 to 80%. That's big in 1 year. That is really, really big. So it worked very, very well. Now you got to know that you got to have a set of parents that are receptive too. The school staff were extremely receptive.
And they helped us to push it through. If parents would call and complain about it, or even ask, well, how do we do this? That advice was there. So that might be something for us to think about. You know, and these were all blue-collar working parents, too. These were not all executive parents. It worked very, very well. After 3 years, the problem had gone away.
Sorry. Okay. I'm not sure when this boat, as you say, has started to sink. But this is beginning to feel like what transpired with the last superintendent. And I don't know what you're looking for success. I don't know what number you're looking for or why it has to be defined by you as to whether we are successful. But you have to stop blaming your administration and your teachers and give them some time. Your administration has had barely a year. Give them some time. If you change it and it doesn't work next year, who's on the block then? Give it some time. I know it feels like we don't have enough of it, but you've had one data point from this team. One. Give it some more time. You're comparing it to last year, but you're comparing it to a different administration, to a different board if you want to. Give it some time. If you want to look for a motion, then my motion is that I support this administration and I support the teachers and we'll do the best that we can. I'm not saying that this is acceptable or that we should stay at this level. I'm not saying that there's things that we can't do better and people that we can't hold accountable. But continuing to blame and to make constant decisions is ineffective. So not once, you're asking a lot of questions that don't have an answer. My question that hasn't been answered for a year and a half is how this district is choosing to measure success. If it's these numbers, or if it's growth, or if it's community involvement. Nobody's ever really sat down and said, okay, here's our capital improvement plan of what academic success looks like in Newport. So as far as I'm concerned, if all we care about is the numbers, then fine. But you've picked a measure of success that is one point in time, one singular point in time.
What I'm saying is we're not looking to point a finger at anybody, but to help the kids to come along better. I think the teachers are doing their jobs, but I don't think in many cases that the folks at home understand what the job is. Some of them are not highly educated. Most of them, I would hope, have a high school education or a GED type thing, and they can help their kids come along, especially in the elementary grades. You start getting into the middle school and the high school, and the math and the sciences and all that get more complicated. And maybe mom and dad at home can't really help too much with that, other than to encourage the kids to sit down and do their homework. And if you get the wrong answers tomorrow when you go to school, you're going to learn what the right answers are. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, because you put the effort in the best you can to come up with an answer. It's not like you're coming in dumbfounded with nothing on the paper and just saying, well, I didn't get it, so I didn't do anything. I'd rather have you come in and say, well, I know I didn't get it right, but here's what I did. And as the teacher, the instructor, or whatever, I'd say, okay, now let's work on it and see what happened. Because there's going to be other kids that are going to learn for that too when you start making it public. You know, the community teaches the community. But we really need mom and dad at home to help this out. I mean, you know that better than anybody else, Jenna.
Jenna, I am surprised that you put it in that context. I am not against the teachers. I am not against the support staff. I am not against the administration, but I am for looking for a way to get us out of where we've been since at least the last 10 years we have gone down. We have done much better historically. All you need to do is look back and you can see that's not acceptable to me to sit here. So for me to sit here and say, oh, everybody's doing a good job and it's great and the kids are failing, is a lie. So we have to have something to measure. The state has given us a yardstick. We need to use that, but they haven't given us the money so that we can be successful. There are so many things I guess I could give to you, Jenna, that would make sense. Look at surgeries that they do now. That they don't have to open you up, they just go in and do it, get it done. Somebody there thought outside of the box how to do this and do it better. So the medical profession has gone forward, aviation has gone forward, we're ready to go into outer space. But we can't figure out when a child learns or doesn't learn, how he does, I don't accept that. Accepting that is accepting where we are. And so somebody's got to be doing it right. But to put it on me, Jenna, that's absolutely unequivocally bull.
Not trying to put it on you,
But you did
said
verbally.
the boat was sinking.
You did. I'm not saying it's sinking. In that, I used the phrase, it's not sinking. I'm willing to stay in the boat until the boat floats. I want to see it go up. But if we're not making it our number one objective to change it, then we are sitting here making television. I'm not interested in that. My interest is in changing the numbers, period. So, it's been a year and a half. Okay? What do we see? Somewhere along, somebody's got to make the decision to change. So, that being said, the teachers' raises got my support, the support staff got my support, the budget got my support, and all of that comes from a deep hope that somewhere along we'll find a key and things will really begin to change. I cannot accept the words that aren't stated that we are going to change, and we're going to do it now in whatever way we can, because the time to change is now. But that being said, I'm insulted by that tie that you put to it, Jenna. Period. And I'll leave it at that.
I think one thing that came out tonight that was positive is something that I don't think any board's ever done would be, we talked about tonight, how can we change the culture and how can we change the importance of education to our community overall. I don't think we've changed curriculums, we've changed administrators, we've changed everything, right? But I don't think we've ever had that conversation. And I think, as I stated before, and I didn't make an motion because I don't think it's necessary, but I think that's something we can do to support everything that has happened without making substantial changes that could work, could not work. We're too far in this to make a drastic change because you've got to give it time. But that's something we have never tried to do, is to change the culture in Newport or the community as a whole and put more emphasis on the value of education. And if we can change that, I think that alone will drastically change our numbers, because then kids care. Like, we want to do better. Not that kids don't. I mean, I think all kids want to do well. But if you go home and education's just not important to your parents, you know, then you're really not going to have that peace. So I really feel like that is a huge support that we could do, you know, put forward. And then anything that our staff comes with us and says, hey, make a kid stay after school or whatever, okay, those are easy changes we can make that won't substantially tip the scale here to throw things off balance. Because if we just say, hey, you know what, that open math thing is crazy, we gotta get rid of that, we can't do that. We can't make that big of a change. But these are supportive changes that we can do that I think will help overall.
All right, well, with that being said, I think we will adjourn the public session and move to non-public. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to go into non-public meeting under 91A dash A colon 3, Roman numeral 2, close parentheses I and close parentheses K.
Second. All right, and it's a roll call then? Mr. Jones?
Darrell Jones, aye.
Senior aye.
Tim Beard, aye.
Jenna Darling, aye.
Steve Morris, aye. Thank you for attending tonight, ladies and gentlemen.